Namaskar. Welcome to another episode of Dialogue. Did you know that Mrs. Indira Gandhi actually thought that Sanjay Gandhi met with an accident because of a wrath from a goddess? This is what she believed in. And she spoke about it too. Was Atal Bihari Vajpayee, if Atal Bihari Vajpayee didn't have the pressure of RSS on top of him, looming on him, would he be different? Is there a similarity between what Atal Bihari Vajpayee went through and what Manmohan Singh went through? Is there a difference? Is there a similarity between Mrs. Indira Gandhi and Narendra Modi? A lot of these questions have been answered in one book. And that book is called How Prime Ministers Decide. Very interesting book written by one of the senior most journalists and authors, Neerja Chowdhury. And I'm going to talk to Neerja Chowdhury today. And I'm going to ask all these questions and try to understand from her the difference between Indira Gandhi's Hinduness and Modi's Hindutva. Let's get right into the show. Neerja ji, thank you so much for joining me. In fact, it's an honor. I consider it an honor to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining for this in conversation. So, ma'am, so many questions have already been asked to you about your book. So, a lot of questions are there. I want to ask you certain questions that I found very, very interesting in your book. And, ma'am, my first question is Mrs. Gandhi called for election in 1977, just after the emergency. Did she actually think she could win, or was she trying to reboot her entire career, or was she trying to look on for a fresh start? Why did she call for this elections, ma'am?
So, Sujit, that is a question that continues to tantalize observers, analysts for decades down the line, almost 4 decades. And you and I are discussing it. So, why did Indira Gandhi call for elections in 77 and risk a rout or a defeat? Now, there are people who believe, and I've quoted them in my book, who felt that Nehru's daughter had triumphed over Sanjay Gandhi's mother. That Nehru was a Democrat, Sanjay Gandhi was an autocrat, and that is the explanation they had. That and they cite and quote people to whom she's supposed to have said, "I know I'm losing, but I will anyway go in for elections." Now, I don't personally subscribe to that view because no politician, and least of all somebody like Indira Gandhi, so politically savvy, would have gone in for elections to risk defeat. It's not as if she was in a corner. By the time she ordered election, she was in a comfortable position. She had a grip over the situation. There were no sanctions against her. There were people in the Western world and in the world who had come out in open support of her. Of course, there had been critics who had criticized the emergency and all that it had entailed. So there were other reasons, I feel. And I think that intelligence had also briefed her, though no politician fully believes the intelligence when they tell the prime minister that he or she is going to win. But she had, I think, various considerations, and the balance of advantage lay in going for election. One was that Sanjay Gandhi was becoming too big. He was even thinking of changing the constitution, and he had got 4 state governments to pass a resolution to that effect, a presidential form of government. And though Indira Gandhi had initiated this process by setting up a committee uh, whose findings and recommendations Sanjay Gandhi was working on and wanted accepted. But she felt, and here it's a Gandhi wanted Sanjay Gandhi to be her heir and groom him. She was conscious of the fact that he was being, what she must have felt led astray by those around him, like Bansi Lal and others. And she probably wanted the elections to set right that balance, and felt that elections would legitimize his role
But
if she was elected to power and Sanjay became her heir apparent. So while she wanted this to happen, she was also concerned about this, the change of system that Sanjay was wanting to go in for. And also there was a lot of pressure on her from Vinoba Bhave, from Communist Party. All those were people who supported her. So there was, and she had been working also on the opposition leaders, and they had mellowed. She got Charan Singh released from jail. She was working on Atal Bihari Vajpayee, and all of them, she was trying to convince them that she would go in for election if they did not play a negative role. And many of them had agreed to this. So there was a combination of factors. And as I said, weighing up the pros and cons, she took the risk and felt the balance of advantage lay in going for elections.
ma'am, but end of the day, if you actually see the net result, she got a new lease of life, isn't it? After 1977 elections, she lost it, but then again, she was a new, improved brand when she came back to power. So she actually rebooted her political career, didn't she?
Absolutely. And there you see, initially she wanted to go, quit politics and go to the Himalayas, buy a house there and settle there. She'd had enough of politics. All she was wanting from the Janta leadership, Morarji Desai, the Prime Minister, that they would leave Sanjay alone, that Sanjay would not be harmed.
Correct.
But that is not the way things turned out. There was the Shah Commission to probe into the excesses of the emergency, her role, Sanjay's role, and others who were associated with her. And it is then the initially morose and downcast Indira Gandhi for many weeks, and she refused to meet people also, suddenly transformed into a fighting tigress. And she fought back. And Sanjay Gandhi, who was responsible for her rout in 1977 to the extent of she losing her election and he losing his election, was the man who brought her back to power. It is he who devised the strategy for her comeback, and that is what I've explored. Why did Indira Gandhi go in for 1977 election, and how did she bounce back to power in 3 years? Which was unprecedented. No major leader in the world had done that. And she came back with a record majority in 1980 elections.
Sticking to Sanjay Gandhi's story, you see, Mrs. Gandhi had said that Sanjay Gandhi's death was a war from the goddesses. It was a wrath of a goddesses, and that's what she said. And so she was a hugely practicing Hindu in a way, like Modi. Ma'am, my question to you is: how did her Hinduism affect her politics, and how is Modi's Hinduism affecting his? Is there a difference between these Hindu influences in their political careers?
See, I think Indira Gandhi went to every major but she really, between 1977 and 1980, there was no major temple that she left out. Now, partly it was because she Sanjay dharam politically in 1980, because the RSS chief had said Indira Gandhi बहुत बड़ी हिंदू है, and they were enamored of her Hindu face. And they were at that, she was trying to Hinduize her politics, her persona, while Atal Bihari Vajpayee, who started the BJP in 1980 with Advani, he was trying at that stage as part of the Janta government to secularize their politics. So, the Hinduization of Indira Gandhi was a weapon. She was aware of this ground sentiment of the rise of the Hindu feeling, which of course the RSS and later the Vishwa Hindu Parishad and the BJP played to their advantage. She very skillfully managed, to come across as pro-Hindu without coming across as anti-Muslim. This is a tightrope walk she did very skillfully. Able to do that well. They tried, but even Narasimha Rao, under whose premiership the Babri Masjid was demolished, and he tried to take the Hindu card away from the BJP in his politics, which was also very interesting, but failed to do so. Now, Indira Gandhi from the RSS BJP that today's Congress has. And the BJP under Narendra Modi, of course, is moving towards a Hindu Rashtra. They opened RSS. And many of the steps they've taken, it's a civilizational project that they are into. So, Hindutva of Modi is very different from the Hinduness that Indira Gandhi employed for her politics.
So, ma'am, can we conclude that Indira Gandhi's Hinduness didn't affect her decision, whereas obviously Modi's Hindutva is affecting his decision? Would I be right if I say this?
Well, her decision, of course, you can say she won the election, the local elections in state elections in Jammu. She won the local elections in Delhi. So she played that card politically, yes. But as I said, she did it, very skillfully, and without coming up front about it. So whether you can say for electoral gains, yes, but for other things, she also used the services of Karan Singh. She put him up front, which was the advice given to her. She tacitly supported the Aikata Mata Yatra that Vishwa Hindu Parishad mounted in 1983 to consolidate Hindu. It was a precursor of the Ram movement that came a little later. She was tacitly supporting, and I was told by some people even funding it. So, she knew she had an ear to the ground. What were the rising forces and how to contain them? And as a leader who was adept at real politics, Sam Dam Dam
I want to ask you another question, ma'am. You see, Atal Bihari Vajpayee represented the right wing. Indira Gandhi represented Congress. But yet, a lot of people say that they had a fantastic relationship between them. They trusted each other at some level. Why and how did this relationship cultivate? What was the reason of that relationship?
I think Indira Gandhi and Vajpayee had an across the board relationship, partly because of parliamentary politics. It was an essential part of his political persona. And even more than Indira Gandhi, of course, Nehru he had a relationship with. If you remember, Nehru had introduced him to uh, Khrushchev, who'd come to India as our future prime minister. And Nehru had instructed the embassy in the US to ensure that Vajpayee, when he visited the US, met all kinds of leaders and had the widest possible exposure. So that was the kind of politics that prevailed at that time. Even Rajiv Gandhi, after Rajiv Gandhi's death, Vajpayee had said Rajiv had saved his life. It is not widely known that Vajpayee had cancer in
Yes.
1980s, and Rajiv had sent him to the US for treatment. And Rajiv had given specific instructions that he was not to come back till the treatment was over. All this, and subsequent prime ministers also used to send Vajpayee to the UNGA. The cover was the UNGA, United Nations General Assembly, every year to attend it, and he could also have his checkups done. And it is extraordinary that no prime minister revealed this. They could have leaked this information. It would have damaged Vajpayee's politics, that he, is ill and not able to do things. That doesn't augur well. That kind of news doesn't do much for the reputation of any political leader. But no prime minister leaked it. So that was the kind of across the board uh, relationship that Vajpayee had, and with Narasimha Rao. He had an incredible relationship, which I have talked about, where he did not allow Narasimha Rao gave specific instructions to Motilal Vora, who was governor of UP, not to invite Kalyan Singh to be the chief minister. Kalyan Singh was at that time making a bid for CM-ship, because Kalyan Singh belonged to the Advani lobby. UP was Vajpayee's turf. She wanted to protect. So Narasimha Rao played ball. And equally, Vajpayee saved him in the case, JMM case, because they did not go in appeal against the High Court verdict, which had acquitted Rao. So all these things happen now. It is, you can say, you scratch my back and I scratch your back. But on bigger issues also, it was Narasimha Rao who told Vajpayee, we are ready to do the nuclear test. I was 3 days away. He briefed him in detail when he took over, and you can go ahead and do it. 1996, it was 13-day government of Vajpayee. He couldn't do it then. He decided not to do it. But in 1998, when he came to power, within a few weeks, he had gone in for the nuclear test, taking India to the global high table. But the preparation, and he said this also, Vajpayee gave the credit to Narasimha Rao. So, this, even though, in our democracy, we've had across the board, across party lines, relationships. So when it is a crisis that affects the whole nation, one leader picks up the phone and talks to the other what is to be done, despite their opposition to each other. But that dialogue has broken down now. And it's a very bitter relationship between the ruling side and the opposition side. They're not able to talk to move forward. And I think that is something to worry about.
Absolutely. Ma'am, let's come to Rajiv Gandhi. For Rajiv Gandhi, you had said that secular prime minister who undermined secularism. That was the words that you used. Why, ma'am? Why did you say that? What made you say that?
You see, Rajiv Gandhi was a prime minister who wanted to take India into the 21st century. Futuristic, technology savvy. He set up 6 technology missions. He brought the age of voting down to 18. He brought in the anti-defection law. You remember the Ayaram, Gayaram. Whole parties would shift their allegiance to another side. It was the bane of Indian politics. So he brought in that anti-defection law. It's another matter that is thrown up different kinds of challenges now and needs to be looked at again. But he immediately went into, to have an accord, Punjab Accord, Assam Accord, Mizoram Accord, to solve these problems which had, been lingering on and had been stagnating during Indira Gandhi's term, because he felt that was his mandate. Now, what got him absolutely threw him off balance was one simple judgment. Those kind of judgments are coming in hundreds every day. Alimony given to a old Muslim woman who'd been divorced by her husband, had 5 children. He had agreed to give her money and then gone back on that promise, and she went to court under the Criminal Procedure Code, which has a provision to look after the, destitute who can't look after themselves, whether it's by their husbands or, fathers or whatever. And the court ruled in her favor. And the Muslim community was up in arms because they saw it as interference in their personal law. The Supreme Court had also made comments about the desirability of the Uniform Civil Code, which had agitated the Muslim community. So the Muslims came out in large numbers. Initially, Rajiv was for giving, for supporting the judgment in favor of this old Muslim woman called Shahbanu. Then, with the Muslims hitting the streets, he got it, And under pressure from leaders of his party, he decided to bring in what was called the Muslim Woman Bill to undo the Shah Banu judgment. Then, to please the Hindus, who were also irate, they were angry because Rajiv they saw it as an appeasement of the minorities. And this word appeasement gained currency then. So, to please them, he decided to enable the opening up of the locks at the Babri Masjid. These locks had been put there in 1950 after Ram Lalla's idol had been surreptitiously smuggled into the sanctum sanctorum of the Babri Masjid in December 1949. So he enabled the court to open the locks on February 1, 1986, thinking he will please the Hindus and he will please the Muslims. He pleased neither. So Rajiv really did not understand the whole caste and religion had on the Indian psyche and was politically naive. That was the undoing of Rajiv Gandhi. And so in 1989, of course, there was subsequent development happened. There was the Bofors, a case that came to the fore with charges against him of bribery. And Vishwanath Pratap Singh and Arun Nehru left his side. So in 1989, Rajiv Gandhi, who had won with an unprecedented 414 seats, Lok Sabha seats, which no one has touched. Even Nehru had not clocked that many seats. He was down to 197 and was replaced by an alternative created by Vishwanath Pratap Singh, who became the Prime Minister of India in 1989.
Correct. Ma'am, I want to talk to you about Vishwanath Pratap Singh. You called him the crafty Prime Minister. You called him the crafty Prime Minister. Ma'am, I want to ask you, was there anything more than the Bofors and Mandal Commission in Vishwanath Pratap Singh?
You know, Vishwanath Pratap Singh, I consider he was, I will say this first, that his most important achievement was, of course, Mandal has let the genie out of the bottle, which could not be put back by anybody. It is a process of decentralization of power going to those who were on the peripheries of the political structure, the OBCs, who got 27% of reservation. And he took this decision because his government at that time was beleaguered. So that apart, historically looking at it, it is something that has become irreversible and the process is still going on. So that was Mandal. But Vishwanath Pratap Singh's contribution was to create an alternative to the then dominant Congress, national alternative in 2.5 years. He got the centrist parties together to merge into Janata Dal. He got the regional parties to support this Janata Dal in what was called the National Front. And he got the right and the left parties as well as BJP to support this setup from the outside. 2.5 years, there was a national alternative to the Congress. That's why the Congress party was defeated. And he used to say he considered one of his important achievements to bring in the regional parties into the national formation. He used to say, if they come into the national government, they will lose their divisive tendencies. And he saw this as his most important contribution, because even though the DMK had not got even one Lok Sabha seat in the 1989 election, he had them in his government at the center. So there were many things, buffers, of course, which tainted the image of Rajiv Gandhi, and really, VP Singh became the Mr. Clean of Indian politics, a title that used to be used for Rajiv Gandhi when he first burst on the Indian scene as the hope of India, as the future of India. But many people believe that Rajiv Gandhi, had he come back for a second term, might have played it very differently. But that, of course, was not to be.
Correct. Ma'am, I completely agree to you. VP Singh was a alternative. He carved himself as an alternative to Congress and Rajiv Gandhi. And I possibly he was the only person who could carve himself as an alternative and successfully come in as a prime minister. I understand, ma'am. But don't you think a lot of these things about getting regional party into mainfold politics, therefore, ensuring that there is no divide, a lot of things were actually retrofitted because he wanted to be a prime minister and everything that he did was temporary. There was no permanent change that Vishwanath Pratap Singh brought about, except for the fact that he destroyed Congress. And since then to now, Congress could never be a majority in party. Except for that, is there anything permanent that he did?
Yes, he dealt a grievous blow to the Congress, and the Congress till today has not recovered from it.
Correct.
And after him, no Congress government has got a majority. Even PV Narasimha Rao, who came after him, uh, it was a minority government. It was later that he broke other parties to make it a majority government. And of course, in 2004, it was a Congress-led government of the UPA, both in 2004 and 2009. And of course, with the rise of Narendra Modi, the Congress has had a slump which is absolutely unprecedented, and it is still not recovered from it. That's true. So Vishwanath Pratap Singh, it is true, dealt a grievous blow to the Congress, and whether the national alternative he crafted was a, as you say, a temporary one. Yes, it is a temporary one because there are ideological differences, programmatic. They had a common program, but there are too many differences and too many pulls and pressures. And in his case, too many people who wanted to be prime minister in his place, like Devilal, Chandrasekhar, there were, you see, there was within his party there was opposition to him, and there was Rajiv Gandhi sitting on the sideline waiting for the opportunity to bring him down. Fotedar, who was a political aide of Rajiv Gandhi, ML Fotedar, he had told me that the moment Vishwanath Pratap Singh took over, we had decided by November of that year, we will bring down his government. So every opportunity they seized. And then, of course, with these uh, differences growing, the BJP knew the government would not last. So the BJP was also on the war path against his government, even though supporting it out from outside. So he had too many contradictions to deal with. That is correct, absolutely correct. And this is what the entire opposition today. Now the opposition is not to the Congress. The dominant force is the BJP, and the others feel they will become extinct if the BJP continues to rise as it is doing. So there is a compulsion to come together, as there was a compulsion to come together in 1989 to defeat the dominant Congress.
Ma'am, now I want to talk to you about Narasimha Rao. Narasimha Rao, do we give him enough credit?
We yes, I would say, I often think, is Narasimha Rao an underrated prime minister? Yes, in many ways he's an underrated prime minister, because it was a calm, steady hand that guided the ship, the government when he took over. The country was aflame with Mandal. The complete country was aflame with Mandir politics. There was Punjab on the boil. There was Jammu and Kashmir on the boil. He had to take major decisions on the economy with the balance of payment crisis. He had to take decisions even before he was sworn in as prime minister to go ahead on the opening up of the economy, the liberalization that went in for. So Narasimha Rao did all that. Within 1 year, he stabilized the situation. When the Vishwa Hindu Parishad again decided, this was getting too, he was actually consolidating his hold. So the BJP probably used the Vishwa Hindu Parishad, and they announced a Kar Seva. The initial Kar Seva, he dealt with very skillfully. And then he decided to go in for a dialogue between two sides on the Babri Masjid and Ram Janmabhoomi question. And he would sit with the sons on the floor, recite shlokas in Sanskrit, and he charmed them. He would sit with the Muslim clerics and recite talk in Farsi. So they were charmed, and he was making headway when the Vishwa Hindu Parishad decided to announce the Kar Seva on December 6, 1992. And certain people around him had told me it was that day when they announced the Kar Seva that Narasimha Rao knew, suspected that he may not be able to save the Babri Masjid. And after that, he went in to build alibis to save himself, all of which I've discussed in the book. But when the Babri Masjid came down and was, brought down and raised, he said 3 days after that, he told 4 journalists that who asked him, was he sleeping that day or what is doing puja that day, which was the buzz in Delhi on December 6, 1992, when the domes of the mosque were being brought down and the country saw this. Uh, he said to these journalists, you think I don't know politics? I was born in politics. I allowed it to happen. And he felt he would be able to take away the Hindu card from the BJP forever. He did manage to put the Ayodhya issue, on the back burner during his term, but it came back with a renewed force in the form of Hindu nationalism. And it went on, and something that helped Narendra Modi come to power in 2014.
I want to now talk to you about Atal Bihari Vajpayee. Uh, without RSS, without LK Advani, do you think Atal Bihari Vajpayee's decisions would have been different?
I think Atal Bihari Vajpayee's decisions, he was very, uh, what is the word, irritated. He felt he was the Prime Minister of India. Why should the RSS and Advani be breathing down his neck? Advani, of course, was a colleague of his. And even the choice of the finance minister of his cabinet was undone by the RSS. This leadership going to see him that night when the list had already gone to the president, and that list had to be recalled by another list, or replaced by another list. This happened at 2 a.m. late at night, and the morning the swearing in was at 9 o'clock in the morning. So Vajpayee felt, he was prime minister but could not even choose his own finance minister. And so it was a very weak start, and then he was buffeted around by the allies, partners like Jayalalitha. And so it was a very miserable first month of the Vajpayee term. And it is after that he decided to go for the nuclear test, and that is where he gained the initiative. Apart from the international ramification, he had very carefully chosen the timing of that nuclear test to give him an advantage vis-a-vis his own opponents, rivals within the Sangh Parivar, the larger family, who wanted him to move in a particular direction, and also his allies who were supporting his government. So that happened. And of course, he knew there would be sanctions, and it is an irony that his government and his colleagues in government, those his aides, managed to handle the domestic economy. He for and had Advani as the deputy prime minister, things, who would be the president of India and so on. They had chosen word was on who would be the finance minister. But yet Vajpayee, as a Hindu party, right wing Hindu party, and how somewhere he managed to convey the impression, and the popular perception was that he had to do it under pressure, but it was really not his view. He wanted to act differently, but poor man, he had to do it under pressure. So that he did very successfully, to build that popular perception. And how somewhere he managed to convey the impression But I always think, that if you when you look at Vajpayee's term as prime minister, development, major thing that you can say, goes to his credit, except the nuclear test. And the nuclear test, all the preparation had been done by Narasimha Rao. And he himself gave the credit to Narasimha Rao. So Vajpayee's legacy is not what he did. Vajpayee's legacy is what he was: a moderate, a middle of the roader who felt a country as diverse as India could only be run by consensus. I think that is his legacy.
Excellent. Very well put, ma'am. Ma'am, I wanted to, we all compare Mrs. Gandhi and Modi. We all compare Mrs. Gandhi and Modi, Mr. Modi. Uh, I was wondering, ma'am, isn't there a similarity between Mr. Vajpayee and Dr. Manmohan Singh? The reason I ask you that is because Mr. Vajpayee had this looming RSS to tell him what to do. He had LK Advani, and so did Manmohan Singh. Had this Sonia Gandhi looming over his head, and the entire opposition. Weren't their careers? Weren't their period in office? Wasn't there a similarity in their period in office and the way they had to take decisions?
It's a very interesting question. Indian politics has had many interesting political joris. There was Nehru and Sardar Patel, and I end my book with an episode in my epilogue on
Yes.
Nehru and Sardar Patel. Then, of course, the fascinating jodi was, as you say, Vajpayee and Advani, rivals and yet colleagues who never brought their relationship to the breaking point. They could always pull back. And the problem came when Vajpayee became prime minister, and his principal secretary was Brajesh Mishra, who was also the national security advisor, and Vajpayee relied on him. And basically, it was Brajesh Mishra who was taking all the decisions. The macro picture was handled by Vajpayee, and very quickly, Brajesh Mishra used to be called the de facto prime minister. So he had replaced LK Advani as number two. And this is something that Advani found very difficult. So the conflict between the two men intensified during Vajpayee's, particularly, after during Vajpayee's premiership.
Yeah.
And then you come to the other Jodi that you've talked about. That is Manmohan Singh and Sonia Gandhi. Sonia Gandhi was half prime minister during Manmohan Singh's time. And the decision was unstated, unspecified, but understood by people who were involved. She would take the political decision and he would do the administrative. The two cannot be separated, but that was the thing. And when he was insisting on the Indo-US nuclear deal, which I have looked at as the decision of Manmohan Singh, I put that under the microscope, how it was done. At one point, Ahmed Patel had said, "What is Dr. Saab doing? This is not his area of work. This is a decision we have to take with this political ramification. For if the left parties withdraw support to the UPA, the government will fall." And the left was uh, dead against this deal. But Manmohan Singh, the killer instinct in Manmohan Singh, that side of Manmohan Singh was seen only on the Indo-US nuclear deal. He just held firm for more than 3 years and saw it through. And even though the left threatened to withdraw support, he managed to put together the support of the Samajwadi Party for his government. Again, when the Samajwadi Party was opposed to the deal earlier, and he managed to wean away Amar Singh to his side, and Amar Singh brought Mulayam Singh on the table, and his government survived, and the deal went through. And this is a side of Dr. Manmohan Singh, the Sam Dam Dand Bhed side, which was not seen on any other decision. And it was a new side of Manmohan Singh that few expected was there. And Sonia Gandhi had to go along with this. But otherwise, it is the mandate had been for Sonia Gandhi. She was elected leader of the Congress Parliamentary Party. She was the elected leader of the UPA Parliamentary Party. And within hours, she had decided not to become Prime Minister because Rahul Gandhi threatened that if she became Prime Minister, he would do something drastic to himself. I've discussed all this in the book also in detail.
Yes.
And therefore, she decided not to be PM and to make Manmohan Singh the Prime Minister of India. But again, a very interesting jodi of Indian politics. And Sonia Gandhi's influenced three Prime Ministers of India: her husband, Narasimha Rao, and then Manmohan Singh.
Well, ma'am, my last question to you. My last question to you. Out of the 14 prime ministers we had, you wrote about 6. Ma'am, if you were to write a biography, which prime minister's biography would you write and why?
Oh, that's a really difficult one. So many biographies have been written, biographies on these prime ministers have been already written. Um, but I'm most fascinated by Indira Gandhi.
Acha.
You
And
know,
why,
there,
ma'am?
there are the highs and lows of her career. She, why? Maybe because she's a woman, I'm a woman. I don't know if that is a factor. How she got the better of her opponents, and her political timing, her courage, the way she created Bangladesh, changed geopolitical realities, the way she got the better of the syndicate, the way she faced the Seventh Fleet of the US in Bay of Bengal at the time of the creation of Bangladesh. The highs of her careers and then the lows of her careers, declaring the emergency to remain in power, press censorship, pressure on the judiciary, all the abridgment of fundamental rights. And then she goes in for declaring elections. I mean, she is a complex, fascinating political character who ruled India for 16 years. So I find her, and if I was to do a biography, though so many biographies have been written on Indira Gandhi, but she fascinates me.
Yeah, yeah, please. Please, please. Ma'am, you were
No, I
saying
was
Modi?
saying Narendra Modi, I have not dealt with him in my book, Scanner of Modi, because I think he's the
Yes.
incumbent prime minister.
Yes.
And for any incumbent prime minister, people will be wary of talking freely. And I realized I would get into this problem very quickly. So it's a project for the future. But what it fascinates me also about Modi, it's a phenomenon we haven't fully understood. Modi, at the end of 10 years, remains as popular as he was in 2014. Why? And I think it has something to do with it changing India, and he is a response to that changing India. So I'm fascinated also by that, what is called the Modi phenomenon, to be able to
Uh,
understand
uh, uh,
what this changing India represents.
Ma'am, to your mind, is Modi the cause of changing India or the effect of changing India?
I think he's a response of a changing India. That I think, we, of course, there is Hindutva, there is a legitimacy factor, there is a tough leader, there's a leader with no family in tow. He has got a feel of the aspirations of people who want to make it good like him. He, a chaiwala, reaching the pinnacle of power. So that excites the imagination of a lot of people who feel we can make it good. All that factor is there. But I suspect it is more than that. And we have to find out what that is, that more phenomenon. Uh, but it is fascinating because no other prime minister has remained popular after 10 years. Nehru, 52 at the peak, 62, he won the election, but he was losing ground, losing health, not the same figure. Indira Gandhi, 67, comes to power, 77, loses. Manmohan Singh comes to power in 2004, narrow majority, and 2014, big majority. badly mauled Congress, the grand old party of India, mauled. And Modi, 2014 and 2024 remaining as popular. So why?
The same. So we'll see a biography on him, ma'am, hopefully from you.
At the moment, no biographies.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much for your time. It was like I told you, it's such an honor speaking to
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you very much.
Stay ahead with our cutting edge news app. Instantly access the latest shorts in just 1 minute and breaking news in just 50 words. Download now for a smarter, faster news experience.